Okay. Okay, hi everybody. I think we are live now, and Shelby and I are having just a couple of technical difficulties between her end and my end. So we're going to try to push through this the best that we can. I'm really, really glad that you guys have tuned in for our very first webinar. I am Megan from Page Flutter. Now, if you guys could do us a favor and just maybe send us a quick message if you can hear Shelby. I'm having a hard time hearing her on my end, but if you guys can hear her, that's all that matters. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started then, and just to kick this off, if anybody can hear Shelby when she's talking, then go ahead and shoot us a quick message on your YouTube Messenger. And nope, okay, so Lee says that they can't hear her so far. So Shelby's going to keep working it and see if she can't get into get her audio working on her end. But until then, I guess I will get things started. And yeah, so here we go. So first off, I just want to tell you guys a little bit about how I found bullet journaling. I know Shelby's story is probably significantly different. So I'm hoping that we can both share our stories and give a little bit of perspective on how flexible bullet journaling is. So I found bullet journaling when I was working with a writing group. I had just finished my master's in creative writing, and I was working with a writing group and brainstorming story ideas, and I was having a really hard time keeping my notes organized. So I started searching for ways to organize notes, and I ran across Ryder's original bullet journal video, which if you've never watched it, it's the very best explanation of bullet journaling on the web as far as I'm concerned. So I found his system. And then I stumbled into a few other bloggers like Kim from Tiny Ray of Sunshine and Kara from Boho Berry and a couple of others. And I just found the technique very flexible, and it helped me as a writer because I would always have a notebook with me wherever I was. If I had an idea, I could jot it down. And it also meant that my schedule was there as well. Because if I had to carry a schedule and a notebook, I just wasn't going to end up carrying the notebook. So that's how I came to find bullet journaling. I started off, I got really excited like most people do about the artistry of it. And I still like a little bit of visual appeal in my journal, but I also found that I am more effective with it if I keep things simple and if I keep the visual aspects of it very clean looking. So I still embellish a little bit. I enjoy that aspect of it. I enjoy having a pretty journal, but I also try to keep it efficient. So that's my story. That's how I came to find bullet journaling. Now, Shelby, I know, has a decidedly more artistic style, and I love her for that. She's really good at incorporating watercolors and just creating this whole artistic lifestyle with her journal. And that's something that I've always really appreciated about her style, and maybe how we came to be such good blogging friends is that we complement each other really well. So I know Shelby is still working things on her end, and I don't know if you guys can see her or hear her at all anymore. I hope we haven't lost her completely. But if you guys have any specific questions that you brought today, then please feel free to stick them in that little text box on your YouTube Messenger, and we will be able to get to them as quickly as possible. I do have my journal with me here, so if you guys need to see something out of my journal, then I can put it up to the camera for you and show you an example from mine. So I see that Charlotte is here with us, Charlotte Dubois. She said that she just started journaling today and has a moleskin, and she wasn't sure what to do with it. So yeah, this is a great place to start off with your questions, Charlotte, if you have specific ones about kind of what to do with bullet journaling. There are a ton of resources on the web, obviously Shelby's website and my own, we're gonna shamelessly push those, but absolutely there are a lot of resources out there, and I encourage you to ask questions and try things and experiment in your journal as you get started. All right, we might have Shelby back with us now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Success! All right.
Yay.
So can everyone else hear me on the chat? They can see me in the bottom right here.
Yep, they can see you. So
okay.
It sounds really clear too.
Thank the Lord. Okay, I just did a switcheroo with my husband's computer. Yay! All right, you guys can hear me. Thank you. Okay, we're on. Nice to see you guys. Okay.
So Shelby, since I already did my intro, why don't you go ahead and catch everybody up with how you found bullet journaling and how your style kind of developed?
Absolutely. Well, my bullet journal is something that's kind of been a project ongoing for more than 2 years. I don't honestly know where I found it, whether it was Pinterest or even a friend. It was just so long ago, and it was just kind of something I did just a little bit, just kind of picked it up. I saw the writer video that everyone's seen, just with a very simple concept, and I thought it was, seemed like a really good idea. So I went ahead and I do what I always do, and I go and buy a brand new journal for it, because I can't just use a half-used journal like I have lying around. And I went and grabbed, what was it? A watermelon-colored ecosystem. It was a square grid. And picked that up and started doing it, and that journal lasted for about 2 years. I finally switched over to Electrum in May of this year, and it just, for those 2 years, everything was really simple. I didn't use it nearly as much as I should have. Like, I didn't really give it the attention that it deserved to make it a useful system. I kind of just chicken pecked at it for a couple years, and I really started to hit it hard in February. And that was when I discovered Boho Berry, and this sort of like renaissance for me. And I realized that, oh, I can doodle in it, and I can make it look pretty, and I can make it mine. And it's not just something that's this, scratchy little thing that I keep my notes in. It became something that was a little bit more than that. And so right around February, March of this year, I started to, practice my cursive handwriting again, which was, ancient. I had to dust that one off, and I started using different pens, and I started using different colors, and I really started to expand my use of the bullet journal, and I started using it for different sorts of planning. I had used it for some planning before, like my wedding, which if you ever are getting married and you have a bullet journal, that is so useful. But I used it for things like that, and I tried using it for homework. But, it, like I said, I didn't use it nearly as much. I didn't use it every day, which is really how you need to use it. But after the spring of this year, I started really getting into it again, and I really started to develop my style, and it's helped me kind of come around to doing art again, which is something that I haven't touched in years. I've been trying to get back into it, and believe it or not, the use of my bullet journal, this planning system, has helped me really get back into drawing and painting and using color again, and it's been really, really fun. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm in this sort of like, I've been using a lot of watercolor in my bullet journal. I've been using a lot of brush lettering and brush pens, and I've been getting into that. So that's where it is right now. That's not where it was, back in the beginning. It was very Writer Carol, like minimalist lines, black and white. And that's great. But it was great from that time in my life, but I just really needed it to adapt and evolve to where I am right now. And it's fabulous right now. So that's basically where my bullet journal is at right now. I fully anticipate it changing again in a couple of months and becoming something completely different. But that's just the way it goes. So yeah, that's pretty much how I've been using the bullet journal. So I think that's just about it. I'm going to go ahead and pop on over here to the chat and see what you guys have for questions. Well, Megan?
Yeah, I see that we did get a question from Kate Warren, and her question was just tips for layouts for smaller journals. She's using a 5x7 notebook right now, and this is a great question, and I've been meaning to do a post on smaller journals, pocket-sized journals that people might be using, because part of what makes the bullet journal so useful is that it's mobile. It's on the go with you all the time. So, and I know my mother has actually complained. I got her into bullet journaling because I never stopped talking about it. And she kind of complained that the standard, A5 size that a lot of journalists use is too big to fit in her purse on a regular basis. Now, I have small children, so I'm constantly carrying a huge diaper bag around. So, to me, it's just one more thing to throw in. It's no big deal. But if you are using a smaller journal, the best tip that I can give is to you're going to have to adapt your layouts to split layouts. For example, in my Luke term, I never know if I'm pronouncing that right, by the way. But in my Luke term, I use all 30 days on the left side of the page. In a smaller journal, you may have to split and put 15 days of the month on one side and 15 days of the month on the other, which means that you're probably going to go through your pages quicker. Your spreads are going to be actually parsed out over a few pages, but you'll still have the same information in them, and I think that it's usable in the same way. I don't think that you're necessarily losing anything by going to a smaller page. It just depends on what you need. So, it's adaptable, it's flexible. If you need to shrink down your spreads and split them, then you absolutely can do that. And I think it works just the same. It can be just as effective.
And something else that I have to add to that, Kate, is I've never used something smaller than an A5. That it fits for my purse, but I can understand some people don't like toting around that much weight. But for something a little bit smaller, if you're doing daily tasks, then it would be easier maybe to not have a whole bunch of different trackers. Like for me, I have a water tracker, and sometimes I put the weather in there, and sometimes I put my meals in there. And if you want to sort of make it all fit into one page, into a smaller journal, then maybe consider doing away with some of those extra flourishes or extra pieces of information. Maybe find a way to add that to its own spread, rather than crowding your dailies, because it might get kind of crowded and clustered. But something else is that if you have a task that could be broken down into a bunch of different tasks, and you could write it down that way so you can cross off a bunch of things. I do that all the time when I'm writing blog posts, because I have to write the blog post, I have to take pictures of my bullet journal, I have to do this, this, and this, and this, and I could list out 10 different things. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just put it as like 2 tasks and I cross them off. But basically what I'm saying is you could take those tasks that all of the different individual things in your head, and just write them in the simplest form, and then just cross them off when that big chunk is done, rather than a bunch of individual little tiny tasks. That might make your dailies go a little bit further. But yeah, I actually haven't had a great deal of experience working with a smaller bullet journal, but that's something that I actually just got, something that's a little bit smaller. So I might have a little bit more to say on that in a couple of weeks. So.
And I think that some people also use a smaller journal sort of as a sidekick, something they throw in their bag, and then later they migrate tasks that they have thought of when they were on the go into their larger bullet journal. I myself do better with a one notebook system, but some people prefer actually parsing them out between a larger notebook and a sidekick. So that's another option.
So it looks like Charlotte asked a question for wanting to keep things really minimalist. She said, so far I've integrated an index, a monthly view, daily views, and a few lists, no future yearly views. What would be your recommendation on these? Well, those are all great things to have, I think. Obviously you need your dailies. You need either your dailies or your weeklies. I know that some people do one or the other, or sometimes both. But definitely just need something for those day-to-day tasks that you need to keep track of. I like the monthly view for being able to see things for the bigger scope at a glance. So I think those are great. But no future or yearly views. I don't have a yearly view right now. I don't have anything bigger than a month. I've been considering doing it, but honestly, I don't know if I would ever look at it. I think it'd be something that whenever I go and move my bullet journal to the next Letstrom, I might go back and be like, oh, look at all these things that I had for this yearly view. So, if you don't want to have that, then, don't be worried about it. That's fine. You might, I don't know, if something else that you might want to have in there, if you want to have any sort of trackers, you can keep it pretty simple so you can have a bunch of information onto one page. Like I have habit trackers that I'm able to cram just a ton of information on each page. I don't know if you can see that okay. But that way I don't have, every day I'm not listing out, what like I was saying a minute ago, like what I ate and how much I drank and all of these different things. I'm not trying to do that on each daily individual page. I know some people do and they like doing it that way, but I like keeping it all on one page. I feel like that's the simplest version of it. might want to look into doing something like that. But as for future views, I don't know. Megan, do you have anything about that? Megan, you're muted.
Oh, I was muted. Okay, so I talked to myself there for a little bit. But what I was trying to say, am I still muted? Or am I good? I think I'm good. Okay. I had to double check. So what I was trying to say is, Charlotte, if what you're doing works for you, then I say keep doing it. I only ever change things in my journal when they really are no longer working for me, or if I feel like I can improve upon it. So since you asked the question, though, about yearly or future planning, I myself actually have to plan out a long way in advance, just the nature of, vacations with my kids and my husband. And my husband is a virtual planner. So we have to do a little bit of a mashup where I have to put long-term things in our iCalendar so that he can see them. And that's always an option. If you future plan on an iCal or on your phone or on some electronic device and it works for you, that's absolutely fine. So I still have to do paper planning because it goes into virtual land and I forget about it and it no longer exists. So I actually use a very simple, and I'm hoping that you guys can see this from where I have it. So I actually use a very simple spread. This is, I don't, as far as like a Calendex or the, any of the other methods that are out there, they're very useful. They're very elegant. They just don't work for me. I need something very straightforward and foolproof because if I can lose it, I will lose it. So this is how my future planning starts. And I'm going to try to hold it steady so you guys can kind of see. So I actually put 4 months on a 2-page spread, and I list each day of the month. And that way, if I need to schedule something far out, I can absolutely do that. I just pencil it in, and when I build my monthly spread, I move tasks from my future log to my monthly spread. And this gives me the capability to plan very far out without necessarily, having to flip everywhere in my journal or, not having a place to write it. If somebody wants to schedule something with me in February, I can schedule it in February. I have a place to put it. Now, right now I don't because the year is coming to an end. And so I obviously don't have a future planning spread for next year. One, I absolutely could at the end of this journal, that if I decided I needed some place to put something. So that's how my future planning works. It's very simple. There's not a lot of space to write things, but I find that this far out, I don't necessarily need a ton of detail. So I hope that helps there. I see that our YouTube has kind of frozen, but I want to make sure, are we still broadcasting? Can you guys still hear us?
I think it's still going.
Okay.
On my end, it's still going.
Okay, good. So then it's just frozen on my end. So anyway, I hope that helps, Charlotte. As far in terms of like, if you want to keep things simple, don't add things unnecessarily just because somebody else does it. I have absolutely nothing against habit trackers. I think they're really useful tools and I see them as being really important in people's lives. They don't work for me, so I don't use them because it keeps my life simpler. So anyway, I hope that helps.
Yeah, it's actually really cool. I like your yearly, the long-term thing. I think I might need to do that. I've been kind of putting it off for a while, but being able to plan out in advance. I have this thing where if I need to put something on my calendar and it's not in this month that I have my bullet journal laid out for, then I just have to like make a note somewhere. It's not a great system. I need to improve on that. But yeah, on what Megan said, I definitely agree. That's one of the things that a lot of newbies, whenever they get into it, they see all of these really cool things and all these nice ideas and these beautiful spreads, and they want to integrate them all, and it's, that's fine. But it's kind of like whenever, freshman orientation in college, they say, don't join every student organization because you're going to burn out really fast. You're going to get pulled in 10 different directions, and then you're going to it's not going to go great. So try to go in just, if you're trying stuff for the first time, don't try a bunch of new stuff at once. Try like 1 or 2 smaller changes and see how that is for a minute, for a couple weeks, and then try something new. Because if you try too many things at once, it could just lead everything to go in haywire. Megan just had an experience with that where she just tried. I'll let you say it, Megan.
Okay, well, I posted on my Instagram that I've been task batching lately, which is where you lump like tasks together in order to be more effective while you're doing it. Essentially, it turns your life into an assembly line. You get really effective at doing that task over a period of 2 hours or 3 hours, and you knock out, a month worth of that task at once. So I thought, oh, this will be so great. I'm going to redo my weekly, and at the end of it, the weekly ended up really, really not working for me. I was halfway through Monday and I was going insane. I didn't know where I was putting things. I didn't know where to write them. So by lunchtime, I just drew a big X through everything. I said, this doesn't work for me. And I turned the page and I moved on. And it was fine.
I'm scrolling back up really quick and I'm seeing T. Ray Harris, and saying that she's an author and doesn't really go anywhere, but want to do so much with the bullet journal, don't know really what to start to make it not so boring. My advice for that, if you're trying to make your bullet journal a little less boring, is to just, something that can go just a super long way, is to just get a handful of colors. Like I had, for me, the first thing I really branched into were Pilot Varsities. They have 5 really bright colors and they're little fountain pens. They feel fancy when you're writing with them. But that way you can add a whole bunch of bright colors and you can keep it in so it doesn't get kind of crazy. You can keep it in just like those 5 colors and you can take notes with those. And adding color really does help a whole lot. There's some old spreads of mine, old dailies of mine, where I just use the Pilot Varsities in black pen, and they look really good. Let me see if I can actually find those really quick so I can show you, just because you don't have to have a whole bunch of supplies to make your bullet journal exciting. You just need to know how to use the right tools to kind of go one direction with them. But let me pop over here really quick.
So while Shelby's finding that, I'll just tack on my answer real fast. And so this is for T. Ray Harris. I will tell you, so since I myself am a writer, some of the spreads that I started with, I actually had a writing project that I was working on at the time when I started, and I created spreads for character names and overheard dialogue. And if you want to keep it interesting as far as like keeping your notes visually appealing, because if you're like me, if it's visually appealing, I'll actually look at it. I started with very simple banners. And I think that's a really easy way to dress up a page really quickly to make it interesting to look at without it becoming a project necessarily. So then, you can use, ideas for stories that you're working on, and you can parse them out into different pages. And as something occurs to you that you need to work out, something with world building, or if you're trying to plot a novel, you can actually do that in, your plot pages, and and then put that in your index, and then you can always go back and refer to those, and it keeps your whole project together. So, okay, now I'll turn this back over to Shelby. She's got something to show us.
I just wanted to show you just the color thing, that it doesn't have to be that crazy. Like here's last year. This is just October of last year, and my dailies were a lot less intense back then. But basically, it's just colors as the header, and everything else is black, and it just really made. I just really like this page, even a year later. But then if you want to go just you don't want to get a bunch of colors or something, then you can just get, like she said, just simple little banners, just to spice it up a little bit, and just I don't know. You can do a whole lot with just like a regular pen. You don't need to spice it up with a bunch of different pens or markers, or you don't need to spice it up with a whole bunch of different kinds of fancy lists. I actually just started a creative project bullet journal, just a little thing on the side, just so I can basically do what Megan was talking about, but just having it. I just want to have it separate from my daily planning. So if I have an idea just while I'm out and about, like, because I don't write books, like not fiction books or anything. That's kind of one of those things I've always wanted to do, and I've got ideas rattling around in there. But so I decided to finally start putting them on paper and at least entertaining the idea a little bit. So if I have a thought while I'm out and about, I can make a note in my regular daily bullet journal, and I can come home and I can kind of like push it a little bit and kind of ask questions about the character that I'm thinking of, or I can doodle them a little bit, and I can kind of keep it separate. And it's absolute chicken scratch. It is not pretty at all. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. It's just kind of like just getting the ideas on paper, and that's just all it is. And it's really freeing just having that somewhere that It's just down on paper. I can find it later. It's got an index so I can like sort through and find specific ideas after the fact. And it's just really, really simple. So if you want to do something like that, just to keep your ideas together and just don't even worry. If you're worried about your regular daily bullet journal looking nice, consider getting like a little, assistant bullet journal for your ideas, so you can just dump it all in one place and have it just be this like little mess of scratches, and you don't have to worry about it.
Absolutely. I think that's really good advice too. Just it's okay to pre-write things if you are just trying to brainstorm something. And if you're wanting to get it into an organized reference page, it's absolutely okay to move things back and organize them before they go in your bullet journal. So I see that we had a question here from Nutmeg1729 about weekly versus daily spreads and kind of how to break those up. So I actually do use a weekly spread as well as dailies, but I would say that my weekly spread cuts down on the amount of information that needs to go in my dailies. So I'll kind of show you where I'm at right now. This has been an evolving process, so it changes every week, but this is my current weekly page. And so what I do is I create just a weekly, just kind of a rundown of appointments and scheduled events that I have going on for that week. And then, things that I need to accomplish for my blog, other things to do that are maybe not related to my blog, or sometimes they are. I tend to find that this area ends up kind of acting as a master task list. And then I have things that are coming up for the next week. I try to keep those, just things that need to be on my radar, I guess. So then when I move over, and then this is my my post planner. This is kind of how I keep track of different posts that I'm working on. I do work on more than one post at once, so this is just kind of how I keep track of them. So then I move into my dailies, and this week it was a pretty busy week, so I had dailies just about every day. But if I have a day where I really don't feel the need to create a daily, I just don't. I don't like creating work for myself unnecessarily just to fill a box. I'm totally okay with having a missed day on the page. If writing that page down was just going to be a waste of my time. If it means that I'm still working on Monday's spread and it's actually Wednesday, that's okay. I don't mind that. So that's sort of my opinion on them. I use them both, and I think they're both very useful. And it's just I just say use them as you see fit.
Yeah, that's really cool. I have tried really hard to get into doing the weekly the way you just showed it, where you have like little tiny boxes for the weekly, so you can make little notes and then sort of weekly task list. And I've tried that, and I am terrible at it. I just can't seem to get into it. I always forget it, and there's like my bullet journal is littered with several attempts that I just kind of got swept under the rug. What I have been doing is I've been doing this weird adaptation where I'm just kind of almost doing a weekly spread. It's strange. This is how it was just a couple weeks ago. I just did 4 days. Nothing that crazy, just 4 days. And then I started realizing that I wasn't really using all of those spaces, because I recently, not that recently, actually, a couple months ago, I switched from horizontal spreads to vertical spreads because it just clicked with me better. Let me find an old horizontal so I can at least illustrate what I'm saying. Okay, yeah, here's some old like horizontal. Nothing crazy, just, that's what most people do. And at some point I just switched to doing vertical ones, like the one I just showed you a second ago. And I was just using so little of the space. It was just painful. I was cringing at how little I was using. So I recently switched to doing it's 6 days, which is it really drives me nuts because I want it to be one more day to make it rounded, but I like this layout a lot. So here's where I'm at right now. So I have 3 days per page, and I like doing it in advance. Most of the time I use the day that I lay out. Sometimes I don't really use them that much, but I usually have a task or 2 that I can do that day. And sometimes for motivation, even if I didn't really do anything that day, like I didn't do a lot, I'll just go and put, after the fact, I'll go and put like morning pages and check it off. But I like having the ability to plan a couple days in advance. That's one of my main arguments for the horizontal layout, because I lay out, used to be 4 days per spread, and now I'm doing 6 days per spread. But I like being able to write in advance and just be able to jot down, like, you know, Sunday I need to do whatever. I need to pull the whatever from the freezer to cook for dinner. Or Monday I need to call somebody. I just like being able to do that a little bit in advance. I don't know if having like a full, I say a full week, I'm shy 1 day, which is just, seems like semantics, but having like a full weekly spread, I almost never go to it. This is kind of my weird in between daily weekly thing. We'll see if it kind of maybe grows into a weekly, like a proper weekly where I have space for writing stuff down. But I just haven't been able to get into planning a week in advance, which is really, I love people who do it. I love the idea of being able to like set goals for each week and then go through and look at those again at least once throughout the week, check, see if you did it, and then moving on to your dailies and your next week and everything. I can't quite get into it. But more power to you if you do it. Those are fantastic to do.
Hey, Shelby, real fast. You're getting a lot of questions about how you did your headers on your
sure.
6 day. Could you talk to that real fast?
Yeah, sure. I actually have, just like I said, I have been getting into watercolors. I've been so in love. It's been so much fun to do. Here, let me pull out. I use water brushes. They're just these really simple little, just got water in the barrel. And I just, for these anyway, for the ones that I just did for this week, I got a couple of watercolors just in the little, I have one of those cheap little palettes that you can get for like $3 at the store. I didn't even buy it myself. It's got someone else's name on it. I got it at a garage sale. But it's just this really cheap Prang. Let me scoot back and grab it. Prang watercolors, super cheap. And I just get, mixed colors that I like. Like right now you can kind of see the colors that I use for my October spread. I just get them on there. I paint them on there and just mix them however I like. And recently I have been using saran wrap. It's just crinkled up saran wrap, and I just, you dab it on the wet paint and it gets that really cool, almost stained glass effect. Super cheap. I've been using the same piece of saran wrap for like a ton of things because, plastic, you can wash it off. My only advice, if you're going to be doing anything with watercolor in your bullet journal with your Letstrom, I can't vouch for any other kind of journal. I can just say with the Letstrom does really well with the paper. It gets kind of crinkly, but I like it like that. My only thing is make sure that you keep a paper towel on hand because you don't want it doesn't bleed through or anything. Like, you can't really see it. There's some ghosting on this page because my October spread with watercolor is on the next page. But you can't really, like the page is completely fine. It's perfectly, you can write on it. It didn't bleed through. It's not ruined. But it's super, the Letstrom paper is just a miracle of nature. I don't know how they do it. It's not watercolor paper at all, but it does really, really well. So yeah, just go really light on the water side of it and just keep paper towels on hand, dab away excess moisture, and you should be golden. It's really not that hard. I just really like having watercolors, in my bullet journal. I really like the effect. It's really easy for me. It might not be easy it might be a little bit too much stuff laid out and too much drying time and everything for other people. But for me, it's like the easiest way for me to add a lot of color and personality to my bullet journal without using a whole bunch of different pens. That's the phase I'm in right now. I'm sure I'll look back on this in a couple of months and be like, yes, the watercolor phase. But yeah, I would definitely suggest that you give it a shot. I just put a link of I just did a tutorial on the blog about how to use water brushes in your bullet journal. And it, like I said, it's really, really easy. You definitely should give it a try. And you don't need water brushes either. You can use whatever random brushes you have around. But yeah, I think you guys would, it's really easy. It's really fun. What can I say? It's like my favorite thing right now.
And I think that's great, Shelby, that we can actually adapt things as you said you're in your watercolor phase. Well, what's nice is that you're not just because you try something in your journal doesn't mean that you're committing to it. You can try something on for size and see if it works for you and have fun with it for a while. And then when you outgrow that or when your needs change, you can move on to something else. I think that's great. So Gina had a question about how to bullet journal with a ringed binder or a Filofax. And we can absolutely talk about that for a little while here. I know a lot of people, one of the things that they don't like about using a notebook is that they don't have the ability to move their collections from one binder to, from one year to another. They sort of have to either recopy them by hand, which can take a lot of time, or they have to just move on from them and shelve the journal and reference another year when it comes time, to find that collection. So I know Kara from Boho Berry did a really great post on how to turn a Filofax into a bullet journal, and she sort of did a hybrid of a bullet journal and a Filofax. She had it kind of tabbed out, and I actually happen to have, just through sheer coincidence, I happen to have the exact same Filofax that Kara did her post on, and this is a really nice one to start with just because they're not very expensive as far as a Filofax goes. They tend to be very pricey, but this one's actually pretty affordable, and it keeps everything together. It's an A5 size, so if you're working with a lot of the standard bullet journal spreads that you see on Instagram, they're gonna translate right over into it. And you can get I found this paper by Maliko on Amazon, and it's already dot gridded and pre-punched for a Filofax, which is great for me. I don't like a lot of arts and crafts time when it comes time to plan. Like, I just want to get things in the journal and go. I don't want to have to trim pages or do a lot of punching or print my own paper. I think it's great that people can do that. It's just not, that's not my strength. So you can get this stuff pretty easily and actually put it into your bullet journal. Now, this is one that I started. This is actually a separate sort of a project. It's not really a bullet journal, but it's sort of a project binder. And the thing I liked about it was just that I can use I can move collections, or notes that I've taken in my bullet journal, and I can kind of move them in here if I need to, or organize them and move them around. I will say that if you're going to do something like this, I tend to think that an index is useless in a binder like this, only because you end up moving things around and then the index is incorrect. So I think most people who use a modular system like this find that they don't necessarily need an index because they can put things into smaller sections and then they sort of learn where things are. So hopefully that helps there. You can also get at Target or Walmart or someplace like that, you can get these little mini binders, these 3-ring binders, really cheap, and put things in there. And this is actually my bullet journal archive, which I'll be having a post coming out on this pretty shortly. But this is just kind of how at the end of the year, how I keep track of old collections and I put them all together. So I might have multiple years of collections in a given category that I put into my archive. And that's a very simple process that involves my scanner, and that's about it. So that's kind of my experience with a Filofax or 3-ring binder system. When it comes to my actual journaling, I personally prefer a notebook, but so I don't have a lot of day-to-day experience with a Filofax bullet journal, but it definitely is an option. If you find that you just don't like having to move things out of your journal, then I would encourage you to try it.
And I think that that's really, really cool. I haven't ever used a 3-ring or a ringed binder or Filofax or anything like that, but I can absolutely see the strengths in being able to move things around because, like say you're working on a project at work or at home or whatever, if you're doing a project and you're taking notes on that, being able to move that to your present day, to the upfront and not having to flip through 50 pages, that would be so useful. I don't think I'm going to be moving to one anytime soon personally, just because I like the idea of it, but I don't like the feel of it, if that makes sense. I don't have a connection with a 3-ring. It's just a silly thing of mine, but I absolutely love seeing other people's, because just being able to print stuff off and just pop it in there, that's really cool. I think that's really, really useful. And for people who kind of feel restricted by the linear layout of the bound notebooks, that's a great option. I think you definitely should look into doing something like that. And you can always try it on. They have like little size binders, like you can get places. I think I remember doing that in high school. They had doing competitions. You have this tiny little 3-ring binders, and I'm sure you can find something like that to give it a try on before you invest in something that's as nice as the Filofax, if you're not really sure if you're in that in between. But yeah, that's definitely something that I think a lot of people should give it a shot and see how they feel, because I can see why it might be frustrating to be stuck in a single line going forward with one bound notebook. But have any other questions going on here? Lee Patrie, you did a cool meal planning spread. Can you talk a little bit more about it? Also, if you're jotting things down during the day, how are you carrying your pens and pencils? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit the first one really quick and pop in. I recently did, I think you're referring to my recipe bank spread, which I can find the link here in a second and shoot it onto the chat here. But here's the spread. This is just the recipe bank. This is not like actual meal planning. Basically, that way I have recipes that I do regularly, and then there's recipes that I want to try, which actually I can move over one of the recipes because I recently tried one. This actually really helped me get some of those Pinterest recipes off of my Pinterest and into my real life. And I tried, what was it? The slow cooker Mongolian beef, and it was delicious. So I'm going to move that to old favorites here in a minute. But basically, the idea is I have them on little Post-it notes, and if you look really closely, you can see the ingredient list for each thing. It doesn't have like the recipe, like set it to 400 in the oven and cook it for 4 hours or whatever. I need to look it up for that. But I'm able to, whenever I'm going to my grocery list, I can just flip right over to a recipe that I've been wanting to try and just see all of the ingredients at once, because I am really bad about going to the grocery store and forgetting to get like the number one thing we went there for. Just yesterday, we ran to go grab creamer, and we were staying right next to the milk, and we were like, yeah, we need milk. Completely left without grabbing milk. It's just not, so I don't have room in my brain for that sort of thing. That's why I have the bullet journal. But yeah, the idea is that basically I just pop over whenever I'm doing my master grocery list, which this has been super helpful. I just have all of my regular things, and I can add little tabs and write all of the odd ingredients that we might need for a recipe. And whenever I'm doing my meal plan for the week, which is usually informal, sometimes I get fancy and actually make a spread for it, but usually I just kind of mentally just know that we're going to be doing recipes soon and grab the ingredients. Just put it in my master grocery list, and when we're there, I'm just reminded to make sure to pick up whatever. And yeah, just the recipe bank has just been really helpful for me in making sure to branch out, because we went through a really bad phase recently where we just basically cooked the same like 5 meals over and over again, and it got really boring, and we were eating out more, and it's not a very healthy or budget-friendly way to live. So I was trying to find a solution for getting through that. Actually, the inspiration came from Kim at Tidy Ray Sunshine. She had a post that was something, it was very similar in spirit, in that she had a spread where she listed out the different recipes that she really liked. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. But I knew I was going to run out of the paper soon, and I wanted to give room for recipes I haven't tried yet. So that was how I kind of tried to organize all of that and fit a bunch of information onto one single spread. But that's basically, yep, you get it. It's the grocery store is a magical place where it makes you forget everything that you completely went there for. It's really frustrating. It gets you with that candy at the front. And then the other question that was asked is about carrying pens and pencils. That was also from Lee. Let me go ahead and let me pop over to Megan here really quick and let you you probably leave the house more than I do.
I do. I am always on the go with my kids, and unfortunately we have a lot of activities and getting them to school. So I journal on the go a lot. In fact, I have definitely bullet journaled in the carpool line, you know, dropping off my son and picking him up from school. That tends to be a lot of when I get this stuff done, so I can catch up on my planning. But if I'm on the go, I try to keep, I really try to keep just one notebook and one pen with me, just because any more than that, it gets to be a chore. So I learned this little pen trick where so if your journal has an elastic closure like this, you basically just pull it over to the corner like this, and it creates, actually I did that sort of backwards, but you undo it and then you pull it across the front and then tuck it under the back corner like this, and it creates like this little band, this little elastic band that goes right across your journal, and you can hook your pen into it, and then you won't get it lost. So that's a really easy way, cheap, and I mean it's a free way to carry your pen and keep it with your journal. A lot of people get a pen loop, and those are really handy to have. I've just never gotten one because I didn't have the need for it, I guess. And I don't like a lot of things sticking out of my journal. Like I tend to not do a lot of tabs. I mark my pages, but I use flat circles. I use flat circle stickers on the edges instead of tabs, just because I just don't like things, you know, sticking out from my journal. I'll find a page that's tabbed with a circle here so you can see. So my monthly pages, I put these little yellow sticky guys on there. So I just like a smooth edge so I don't get the pen loop. Another way though, if I need for some reason to have my colors with me, I actually bought, when I got my Staedtler fine liners, mine actually came in this handy little bag, and it has a pouch sewn onto the inside so I can keep my black pens or brush pens. I have a couple of very small brush pens that I like to use, even though I'm not much of a hand letterer. Every now and then I like to just jazz things up a little bit, and then I kind of keep those in this little pouch along with an eraser or whatever I need. Also, I like that at the back of this journal, there's actually a pouch. So I keep a couple of things in the pouch. So I have like this little stencil that I need just for little things, little circles. I have some task batching buttons that I sometimes draw in my dailies, and so I use the little circle tools in this. I keep the current 6-word challenge in there, so that's in there. Just like a couple of other lists that I might need for things that I can't copy into my journal because I need to be able to share them with other people. I carry my circle stickers in there, and this is a really good way. If you highlight the edges of your pages, this is a good way to cut back on the number of pens that you're taking out with you when you leave the house, because these slide into the back of your journal and you can just stick them to the edges, and you don't necessarily have to have a whole nother set of colored pens to mark your page edges. And then I just keep my standard my little Westcott ruler, which I love these little rulers. I'm not sure why I love them so much, but you know, they're clear and they've got these little markings and the edges are beveled, and I've lost a few of these and I always go back and buy the same one. It's just one of my favorites. So that's usually what I carry when I leave the house. If I absolutely have to have my colors, I take my little roll-up bag for my Staedtlers, but other than that, I'm really just sort of like a one pen, one journal kind of girl when I'm on the go. I usually do my color, like if I'm going to add color, I'm going to create something artistic. I usually do that at night because that for me is more of a recreational activity, it's more of a therapeutic thing than it is an actual planning thing. So I don't necessarily need to be doing it on the go.
Yep, I think that's a really good point, because I have like a pencil bag that I just like got at Walmart a couple of years ago. It's like Sasquatch brand. But yeah, I just throw in just usually what's in there is like just one regular pencil, usually a pencil sharpener. And it depends on my mood. I go through phases where I'm like, I am really I'm going to write with my Pilot Metropolitan for everything for like a couple weeks. It just happens. And I'll go up and down, and I'll use, sometimes I use like just a regular Uniball little gel pen, or sometimes I'm feeling simple and I use one of these little Papermate pens. I just have a thing where this is my favorite pen for like 2 weeks, and I just go through it. Usually if you shook me down, you'd usually find a Micron on me. They're some of my absolute favorite pens. These are like, if you want like one solid black pen, absolutely Micron is the way to go. You can use them for writing, you can use them for drawing. They're super great. Sometimes if I want to, like Megan said, I don't really bring my color stuff with me very often just because I don't usually, I just do that at home. Because it's usually for me like filling out habit trackers, or if I am using it for decoration, then that's when I'm sitting down for an extended period of time and, working on it. Not very often would you find me like sitting around in my car waiting for something, because usually I'm running late for things. But if I do go out, then I typically don't bring. I mean, I have like the little 10-pack Stetlers, and these slip really easily into my purse. I have a pretty big purse. But sometime lately, I've been, like I said, obsessed with watercolors. Lately, I've been bringing, when I went hiking or when I went camping last weekend, I brought several of my water brushes because these are extremely portable. And if you want to do something fancy and you don't want to bring a bunch of like pencils and whatnot or paints, you could fill them with ink and have them be just a portable brush pen, basically. And they work really well. And sometimes if I'm just bringing the Pentel Aquash water brushes, then I have a pack of Prismacolor watercolor pencils that I can, if I'm really wanting to sit down and like do some art or something, I can do that and then bring all of that, and they all fit in the same tin. They're extremely easy to bring with me. And then I have a whole set of Tombos, but I almost never bring them out of the house just because they're bulky and they're long and they're a pain to bring with me. So if I'm wanting to do brush lettering, I'll either bring one of the watercolor brushes or the water brushes, or I have my little Pentel pocket brush, just a simple little thing, very easy to use, very easy to transport, and it's kind of nice. I've been using it for like everything lately. But typically speaking, if I'm just going somewhere, I almost never bring anything but like a pen or two. Like Megan said, it's kind of more of a, when I'm wanting to sit down and decorate my bullet journal, I sit down and decorate my bullet journal. I don't take stuff everywhere because I want to be able to devote my attention to it. Because if I try to do something else while I'm doing that, it'll take me so much longer. And I want to get it done, and I want to get it done right the first time. And also, I also have a Westcott ruler. It's a little metal guy, but Westcott's a really good brand for rulers, apparently. I kind of stole that from my husband. But yeah, I typically just have kind of one simple pen with me, one simple black pen. And if I'm really wanting to do something fancy like brush lettering, I'll bring one of those pens that I just listed. But I usually keep it pretty simple. Even though I have a big bulky purse, I usually only have a handful of pens on me. A handful of pens, but you know what I'm saying. That's pretty light for someone like me. And which, by the way, I did not know that Stetler gave you that giant roll-up bag. I am really jealous.
Yeah, they had it on Amazon for a little while. It's probably still on there. So I'm sure somebody is going to jump on Amazon right now and tell us if it's still there. But so it was only like $2 or $3 more than the regular set. So I went ahead and ordered the one that came with the roll-up bag. I hope it's still available because I think it's really handy to have. And I don't know if they actually sell them separately. But hey, Shelby, I was going to ask you, people were asking about those little circle stickers that I was using, and I sent you a link over on our Google Hangouts page. If you wouldn't mind sharing that on the YouTube comments, for some reason it won't let me share it. So if you'd mind sharing that for people, that is a link to a post in which I have linked the exact stickers if you were interested in those. They're a little smaller than the normal circular labels that you're going to find places, and they're pastel colors, which I really like a lot, and I'm fickle that way. The colors matter to me. So I've linked those ones on there for you. It's a pretty big pack, so you're probably going to be a little shocked at the price when you see it for just a little pack of stickers, but it's a big pack. I've used it now in 3 different journals, and I still haven't run out of stickers, so they work really well.
Yeah, I've actually considered getting some of those stickers just because I've seen people like yourself using them as markers and keeping them on the side and everything. And I only just now recently started, not for my main bullet journal, for like a recipe bullet journal, which I'm keeping on the side. I've started using color on the edges to do that. And I really like that. I really like being able to kind of like visually flip through and see generally what's going on and having that all in your head and knowing what each color means. I just really I love seeing people color code just going crazy in their bullet journal because they look so cool. They look so organized. I haven't really done it, but I love seeing other people do that.
I will give you a little hint. If you start color coding your edges, it really helps if you have all of the same color in the same spot on the page. So if you look at the sides of my pages, you can actually tell that I have, you know, certain colors that, like my purples, these are my writing pages, and they tend to always be in this same area. And the way I accomplish that is that in the back of my journal, I actually have a little index here to tell me what each color means and where on the page it should go. So I can just line it up, and then it's nice and tidy.
That's awesome. I've seen those flip out indexes.
Sure. Okay.
Those flip out indexes look so cool. You look like you just like a Swiss pocket knife that you're just like whipping out the extra index. That looks really nice. Sarah Y asked, are there any ring bound planners that use D-rings? All my back pages bend and fold with round rings. I can't say. I've never really used the 3-ring stuff before, but I mean, Megan, do you know?
You know, I don't know. There may be. I would suggest an online search for that, because I mean, Office Depot, they tend to keep really mainstream things. I'm not sure if you're living in the US or outside the US, so I'm not sure what's available in your area, but I would start with an online search and just see if anybody has a D-ring mini binder. That's a really good question. I don't know.
I can see why the round ring might be really frustrating.
Yeah, that would get
I've had that happen with school binders, like back when I was using those 3 rings, and the round ones always get they get obliterated.
They do for sure.
I don't know why they design those. It looks like we are coming up on the end of our webinar. Any last questions before we go ahead and sign off?
Don't see any others coming in. So if you guys thought that this was useful, Shelby has a link on the original registration page, the page where you guys registered. There is at the very bottom of the page a link to a donation button. And if you guys thought that there was value added in this webinar and you got a lot out of it, we'd ask that you consider just maybe, you know, throwing $1 or $2 at these webinars so that we can keep doing them in the future. It's totally up to you. We want to keep them free for people. So that's always there as an option. But other than that, Shelby, thank you for doing this with me.
This has been a pleasure. Yeah, and if you guys want to keep the conversation going and you want to keep chatting, pop on over to the bulletjournalhangout.com. It's a forum where you can discuss all different kinds of things, and you can start conversations, you can respond to other people, and it's just a great way to keep talking about bullet journal stuff. Megan and I have both been working on that, and I think it's a great place for you to go, and that might tide you over until the next one. You can find the link down below in the description box. And also, just as a shameless plug before we leave, don't forget to pop on over and check out the free preview for my ebook, Capture Your Creativity. Like I was saying at the beginning of this, the bullet journal has really helped me get back into doing creative stuff, and it's given me a lot of insight about getting back into my hobbies and giving myself time to do things that I want. And I think that hopefully, if you read it, I think that you can really find maybe a couple nuggets of wisdom in there to help you get back into doing whatever it is that you stopped doing when you were a teenager because you didn't have time because you're a fancy adult life and bills and stuff. I think it's important to get back to your roots and doing stuff that you love. So you can find the free preview by clicking the link in the description below. And yeah, I think you guys really like that. So if you guys can check that out, I'd really appreciate it. And other than that, I just want to say happy October, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're reading so many nice comments from you guys. You know, thank you guys so much for joining us today. And I think we both think that we just have the best followers in the universe. I think you guys are amazing. And there's so many ideas that we get from people who email us or share things with us on Instagram. So I think this community really has a lot to offer, and it really is just a testament to the type of people who have gotten involved with bullet journaling. So thank you guys so much for being a part of this.
Great community. You guys are all so positive, and I love it, and it's so nice seeing you.
Yeah.
Every day I love seeing comments and people getting started and having such enthusiasm. This is such a wonderful, wonderful community. So keep it rolling. Keep being positive. Have a wonderful October, and we will see you later.
Bye.
Bye.